Howdy. Yes, I did spell it that way. Welcome to the all-new Q3. For over 10 years and 2 previous generations, the Q3 existed in the US as almost the gateway to the brand. It actually existed in Europe before that, but we finally got it in 2015. And although the A3 is cheaper, this is America where everyone seems to buy SUVs. So the Q3 outsells the A3 3-to-1. And it might get even more lopsided because, well, the Q3 is back in a 3rd generation and Audi's hoping to mop the floor with its competition. At least that's like their claim. That's what we're here to test. Zooming out, the design is all new, and there's 9 colors, and some real colors. Sage green is my favorite. I have right here the Malpelo blue. Malpelo means bad hair in Spanish, so I think what they're actually meaning is the Malpelo Island in the Pacific Ocean. That would make more sense. And there's also a great red. There's great colors, but statistically, I think people are gonna buy gray. At least I have good grays. It's Audi after all. Zooming in, the design has effectively been updated to match Audi's other SUV lineup. And the lighting is one of the most notable things. Audi actually kind of invented DRLs, or daytime running lights, and they have them here, kind of stolen from the Q6, or maybe borrowed. The design is very similar. You can have 3 different customizable options of how these 23 pixels light up. Very cool. They are 3 pre-approved options, so you can't completely customize it, but I'll still take it. I think it's a very fun way to personalize the front look of your car. All the lighting is LED as standard on this car, and unfortunately we don't get the matrix LED lights that they get over in Europe that kind of light up certain things and not other things ahead of you. That's a very cool function. Maybe we'll get it someday. They've said NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, is not allowing them here, but there's other vehicles in the US that do get that. So I'm not really sure how to read into that. Either way, I hope we get it someday. Up front, nice big grille, blacked out in this case, and huge holes. I mean, my entire hand, if I didn't have this silly Apple Watch on, I could actually, oh, I just triggered Siri. Hello, Siri. If I didn't have the Apple Watch on, I could actually shove my entire arm into the grille. It looks pretty cool. I'm worried about what kind of things will fly in here. Maybe a bird. Watch out for those wildlife. And it clearly does attract some bugs, as we can see here. And the Audi rings, which are not 3-dimensional at all. Now, they do hide the radar behind here, which is cool, but I kind of wish they had the old school effect. They've kind of flattened everything out for this modern design. Not my favorite. Around the side, it does get into this big black area, or it could be silver if you don't have the blackout package. To me, that's a lot of black, but I didn't go to design school, so maybe it'd be too much if it was all blue. Design school would have been fun though. Maybe I should consider that. To add to the more upfront and bulky front of the car, they've also have these more aggressive shoulder blisters, as they call them, which kind of pays homage to some of the old Audi Quattro racing vehicles from the 80s. Huge fan of that. It's subtle, but it's there. And as far as wheels, well, there are a couple options, 18, 19, or 20 inch. This case, it's 20 inch. In a moment, we'll talk about driving and why I don't think these are the move, but I think they look pretty good. Other than that, it's still distinctly Audi SUV. Now, it's technically almost 2 inches longer than the old Q3, a hair taller and wider. It's really just grown up in every dimension. And I think it does really look aggressive without feeling too overpowering. One design trend that I'm loving in the industry is kind of this floating roof effect. So they have the color climbing up this D-pillar, but not all the way to the top, leaving this black stripe that kind of cuts through it into the abyss behind it. Around back, a lot more lighting. Audi loves their lighting. We have OLED taillights, which basically have individual sections that can be lit up or not lit up. This is an optional extra. I think it's pretty cool though. There's 36 different elements that can light up in different ways, 3 different patterns to coordinate or correspond with whatever you chose in the front of the car. Again, very cool to personalize the look of your lights. And a light bar that shoots all the way across the car because, again, we live in a light bar society. This should assimilate nicely. What takes it a step further, maybe too far in my opinion, is this Audi logo. It also lights up. I think that's kind of cool, but it lights up red, which I fear might make people think it's a 3rd brake light being lit up and they might think you're stopping. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you guys think this is really cool or if you think it's a little gimmicky. I could see it go either way. Behind the second row, you have 25 to 29 cubic feet of storage. Why is it a variable? Well, it depends where the second row is. If it's scooted all the way back, it's 25 cubic feet, which is not bad for this classic car. But the cool thing is you can move the back row forward 5 inches and get that 29 cubic feet of storage space, if your back passengers are okay with that. Lay all the seats down and you have a full 50 cubic feet. Honestly, pretty good numbers for a car of this size. Underneath, underneath, you won't actually find more storage, but you will find a spare tire, which seems like it's not that common these days. I really appreciate that. And in the middle of the spare tire is the subwoofer for your Sonos sound system. We'll get into that later. On the inside of the Q3, we do have a pretty nice place to sit and relax and listen to music, and there's a lot of things you can do in this car besides drive. There are some nice door materials, a lot of soft touch surfaces, some leather, some interesting use of woven fabric, and there's nice dash materials where that fabric continues across the top, and yes, some wood. The largest piece of wood Audi says is on any Audi. That's pretty cool and funny to see in the Q3. I bet that changes when their later Q7 and Q9 come to market. If not, funny bragging rights to be a Q3 owner with the largest wood of any Audi owner. The seats are leather, as standard, and they seem like a pretty nice leather. I like this light color interior on this specific one. There's a couple other colors as well, including black if you like lack of color. But not to keep comparing to Europe, but they have Alcantara seats over there. And these aren't ventilated, but they are heated. But most everything you interact with just feels and looks premium. Oh, except for that. Center console is, yes, piano black, kind of everywhere. Don't love that. It's gonna show a lot of fingerprints, scratches, and dust particles, and possibly even blind you if the sun hits it the wrong way. But it looks good in press photos, and I think that's why they did it. Something cool about the center console, literally, is there is a cooled wireless phone charger in the middle that works super well. It's actually very effective, must be like 15 watts, and actively cooled. There's vents blowing in your phone to keep it from overheating. But other than that, the center console is pretty barren because they moved the shifter up here. The steering wheel now has a new thing, stock center, stock HQ. I don't know what to call it yet, but there are stocks behind the steering wheel, like many cars, but this is a very interesting implementation of the stocks where there's actually like a turn signal behind the wiper control, which is pretty neat. And that operates very differently. It doesn't just move the entire stock from the center of the steering column like they traditionally do. It actually is just a little thing behind here. You flip up and down for turn signals. Cool. And then over here is the drive selector, which is great. I love having that right behind the steering wheel. They've clearly seen Mercedes and Tesla and Rivian and some others do it over here, and they decided that was a good idea. And I concur. But then there's some capacitive buttons on the steering wheel, which I don't love. I'd rather have clicky buttons, but they work pretty well and they actually give some feedback, so I'll give it a pass. The only real clicky buttons seem to be down here below the screen for drive select and a couple other things. Those are nice, classic tactile Audi buttons. All the climate control buttons are now in the screen. Screen spelled with like 9 E's. This is a huge piece of glass with an interesting shape and a lot of black bezel. The steering wheel covers a lot of where the driver display could be, so they've limited it to a slim little bit here. And then the main display with Audi's new HMI interface system. It's actually fantastic. It works super well, very responsive. Oh, and the climate control, I almost forgot about that. That's all in here as well. And okay, it is pretty easy to use and it is reactive and responsive, but I still would have preferred just some physical buttons down here. But I guess I don't make the rules. But alas, most people wouldn't be sitting in a parking lot playing with their iPads or listening to the fantastic sound system. They'd be out on the road. Driving the Q3. Come on, come on, come on, climb this hill. Okay, so I came into this kind of optimistically thinking it might be like a hot hatchback with a little bit of a lift kit. And it is fairly hot. A turbo 4-cylinder under the hood, 255 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. That's honestly plenty of power to have some fun. Audi likes to claim best-in-class horsepower, but then they like cherry-pick the fact that the torque is not best-in-class. it's fine. They still have the best in class 0 to 60 time of 5.5 seconds. And that's really pretty good. That's like all you need. I know there's many cars out there with sub 5 seconds, sub 4 second. You get into the EVs and you're like, what are we doing? But for a car like this that's for road tripping or zipping around town and having a bit of style, I think it's totally fine. All that power is being sent through Quattro, Audi's all-wheel drive system, to the four wheels and through a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Now that's another big change from the previous Q3, which had an 8-speed Tiptronic. This dual clutch, I'd say it's definitely capable, but it also has its moments of confusion, primarily in low speeds in balanced mode. Throwing in dynamic mode does seem to tighten up the shifts a bit. Now, when you first get in the car, key up setting, as we call it, will put you in balanced mode. There are a few other driving modes you can play with. Balanced is like it's described, relatively balanced, just trying to fit the best tool for most people's needs. But you can pop over to other drive modes with the drive mode select button, a physical control, unlike the Climate, and you can pop it over into dynamic. Now, this is when things are taken up a notch. And what's changed, immediately perceptible to me, is the steering wheel. It is a bit tighter now. That's something most cars do in their sport mode, or in this case, dynamic mode. Popping over these rougher parts of the road, they're still rough, and the suspension is decently well damped. The suspension itself, not adaptive dampers. That would have been a really cool feature to have in a car in this class. This car over in Europe gets a 2-valve adaptive damper. Not so in the US. We have a classic spring coil suspension setup, but I'd say it's damped pretty well for most things. What bothers me more than that is probably the fact that this car is equipped with 20-inch wheels. That's allowing me to, yes, technically handle cornering a bit more precisely, but I also feel a lot more of what's happening through the road. Now, if I'm on a track, that's what I want, but I'm not the one taking the Q3 to the track. I don't think many people are. Having something like a 19-inch wheel or maybe even an 18-inch wheel would, I think, better suit this driving experience. Just give me the 18s, call it a day. Specifically the European 18s, they look better. So beyond the suspension and the wheels that I already said were a bit too big, the rest of the ride comfort components seem pretty good. The NVH, or noise, vibration, and harshness, I think has been improved. There is now dual laminated glass up front, which is standard, and that's definitely helpful with some of the road noise. And I think these seats really are fairly comfortable. Now, it's not blisteringly hot outside, it's in the low 80s, and I do drastically wish there were ventilated seats. It does kind of blow my mind to have an SUV, in this case spec'd over $50,000 with no ventilated seats when you can go get that in a RAV4, but hey, at least they're heated. And the steering wheel's heated. 3 levels of heating. That's pretty cool. Now, the funky stalks I mentioned earlier, while you're driving is when you're actually interacting with them. And I can say, after driving this a lot of today, I've gotten used to it. The other stalk being the drive selector, I prefer that. I do like having that on the stalk itself by the steering wheel where your hands already are. And I was curious how I'd feel about the displays while driving. A lot of people have complained about having just a sliver on the driver display, which leaves a lot of blank black screen. But when you're driving, you don't really notice nor care about the blank black screen. So I kind of like having just a slim sliver of information I actually need. I don't need to be bombarded with 48 inches of other stuff. Another important component of driving to me is, whoa, that's gorgeous. See, that's a proper use of stainless steel, not a Cybertruck. Anyways, another important component of driving to me is the sound system. And well, this has a Sonos sound system, which is really pretty cool. Audi has done that in a few other models as well, but this has a 420 watt, 12 speaker Sonos sound system that sounds really pretty good. And I know there's some little bits of cheap feeling stuff here and there, but as a whole, just driving this thing, it does feel fairly premium. Premium vibes, I could say, which honestly those two words sound wrong together. But I wonder how it is in the back. Well, I'm pretty good back here, thanks for asking. I actually have plenty of leg room, with the asterisk of as long as the seat's all the way back. If my driver decides he wants all the cargo space, that'll shove me all the way up here, and that's just not really feasible. So I guess you can choose between the cargo space capacity or the happiness of the rear seat. But the comfort's pretty decent, and it is nice having vents and even climate control back here. They said 3-zone climate control, and that's technically correct, but you don't really have much control over this zone. Temperature is it. There is no fan speed button. But I've got my 100-watt USB-C power delivery ports. Again, part of an optional package, but that gives me enough power to keep my MacBook juiced to full. Now that we're back on an A road of sorts, I can mention the driver assistance system, which unfortunately is optional. You have to pay extra for that, but they throw in the heated steering wheel with the package, so cool. The ADAS is pretty good. That means the lane centering is, well, keeps you in the lane, and the wheel is capacitive, so it responds to touch, not you actually manipulating it to remind the car you're still there. I love this system quite a bit. I think it's really, honestly, pretty competitive and keeps you centered anywhere as long as there's lanes. It doesn't have to be a pre-mapped highway. So fantastic for road trips, good for traffic jams, and even good for some of your little windy B roads. Just maybe don't take it on one that's too windy. And always pay attention. You never know what's gonna happen. So this thing, starting price, $45,000 once you include the destination fee. And what's respectable is even if you check the box for every option, it's still within about $55,000. So it's not quite like Porsche where you can add another 100 grand of options, which I appreciate. But this thing looks pretty premium. It feels pretty premium. I think its older siblings would be proud of how the Q3 has grown up. I do wish we had more of the options found on the other side of the Atlantic. I think Europe gets some really enticing engine options, some better looking wheel options. But either way, I think this thing will sell pretty well. Not because I know the future, but because I can read the past. The Q3 was Audi's second best-selling model in the US, and I think with it getting better, that's just gonna keep happening. If you're interested, you can of course check out KBB for a fair purchase price on a Q3 like this, or perhaps the competition. BMW X1, Mercedes, Volvo, those are some other enticing, small, kind of premium crossovers I think many people will appreciate. For me, I'm just gonna appreciate the view. See you next time.